It's kind of funny because it was the same time.
And it's 1 minute and counting.
Open. So I messaged me pictures that popped up. It's like, oh, memories.
It was productive.
Yeah, yeah, it was certainly productive.
I will.
Time at the very beginning.
At the beginning of where?
I'll tell you.
Yes, Ed, do this.
Yeah, no. After this is done and you. Yes.
Script. Got it. I will do that.
All right.
Have you got your dinnerware, your.
So that was really.
Oh. Yeah.
Big hanger for the airport, and I'll talk to you.
It's 5:30. Is that it? Are we ready to go? Got it. Welcome to this regular session of the Dallas City Council meeting this September 26th at 5:30. We're convening at the City Hall Council Chambers, 313 Court Street. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Timothy McLaughlin, and I'll be standing in for our mayor tonight. Roll call of our council.
Councilor Runyon,
Here.
Councilor Richardson.
Here.
Councilor Randall,
Present.
Councilor McLaughlin,
Yes, I'm here.
Councilor Long.
Present.
Mayor Mays not in attendance.
All right. Councilor Runyon, would you please lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
Stand if you're physically able. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the United States of America
and to the republic
which stands one nation
under God,
God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
All right. We need to have approval of our agenda. Do I hear a motion? Oh, no, I have to make a little statement here because we need to update our agenda. We're going to add an executive session on item number 13, A and B. Now, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any debate? All right, we'll go ahead and please affirm by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried then. Here we go. Chief Worthy, would you please come forward and make your commendation presentations?
This one on? Okay, great. If I could be joined by Officers Labes and Randall, please. Also present with us tonight is Officer Finch, who's a previous Medal of Valor winner for the City of the Dallas Police Department. So don't be shy, step over here, you guys. I'm not going to bite you. So this is a life-saving award, which is a little bit overdue. They've previously been awarded their medals, which you'll see on their uniform. And the reason that delay took place is because we literally had to order more medals. We ran out of them because these guys have been busy.
Izetta, are they going to be on the camera there? We need to move them to the middle.
Okay, fantastic. Again, I'm Tom Worthy. I'm the chief of. Yes, sir. Ready? Oh,
She's trying to line you up there. Bingo.
There we go.
There it is.
all right. I'll try not to walk around while I make these presentations. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm Tom Worthy. I'm the chief of police of the City of the Dallas Police Department. And this is a life-saving award for Officers Randall and Labes. Also not present tonight, Officers Castro and Perez are included in this incident. So on June 30th, 2022 at 6:30 PM, Officers Randall, Castro, Perez, and Labes responded to a call at 315 West 3rd Street in the Dalles, of an unconscious male in respiratory distress. Upon arrival of these officers, they located a male who was purple in the face and not breathing. A citizen was attempting cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR, and a vocal and unruly crowd was gathering in the area. Officers took control of the scene, managed the crowd, and assessed the victim whose life was in great peril. Officers determined that the cause of the medical emergency was a probable drug overdose. Amid the chaotic scene, officers administered Narcan and took over CPR. The Narcan was ineffective at first, indicating a massive overdose of opioids. Officers continued to assess the situation and provide care, including airway management and chest compressions. Officers continued to fight to save the victim, and ultimately 4 doses of Narcan were administered by officers. Once fire personnel arrived, another 2 doses of Narcan, the counter opioid medication, was administered via intermusculatory injections. Ultimately, the victim began to breathe, slowly recovered, and was disoriented, confused, and also uncooperative. He was transferred to a higher level care and survived the incident. And the officers assessed the scene to determine if any other dangerous drugs were present that could endanger the others at the location, and they located none. During this encounter, officers worked as a team in challenging circumstances to save the life of the victim. Their training and commitment to service was on full display. Further actions on June 30th, 2022, Officers Randall, Castro, Perez, and Labes are being presented the City of the Dalles Police Life-Saving Award. If not for their actions, this would have been a fatal overdose of fentanyl. Thank you, gentlemen.
Now we have item number 6, audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. Citizens are encouraged to ask with the understanding that the city can either answer the question tonight or refer that question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak? Seeing no hands, we will move on. We have city manager report.
Thank you very much. Just a few items for you this evening. The first, I'm very proud to let you know, and a special thanks to our city staff, most notably the finance department, as we've received a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. And so just wanted to do that special call out to Angie and her team and all the hard work of our city staffers for that award. I also wanted to do a brief update. Last week, the community outreach team went to Washington, D.C. and to advocate and push for support for different projects and policies that are of interest or a priority, not only for the city of the Dalles, but many of our community partners. And so representatives from the Port of the Dalles, Greg Weiss, the port president, as well as the executive director, Andrea Kloss, along with Scott Heggie, Wasco County Commissioner, and I see he's on the call today, and Dan Spots from the Columbia Gorge Community College, all attended and went to DC and presented on a number of different items. We met with the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties. We met with Congressman Bentz, Senator Wyden, and staff from Senator Merkley, Murray, and Maria Cantwell's office, along with Jamie Herrera Butler. We were advocating and seeking support for several different projects and policies. Those included the EDA grant application that we have in partnership with Klickitat County and Columbia Gorge Community College, and that's for the construction of a new hangar at the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport, along with stubbing in infrastructure to allow continued development at our business park. A Q-Life co-location facility to better provide fiber service to our constituents within the city of the Dalles and Wasco County, and would also serve an important role in Cascadia level earthquake recovery and resiliency efforts. Improved forest management policies to reduce fuel buildup and fire risk for our watershed. And for some of our partners, Port Marina fire recovery assistance, development of industrial land, and PILT and SRS. PILT being payment in lieu of taxes, and SRS being secure rural schools, which are both important programs that always seem to be, in one case or another, on the chopping block for continued funding. And so we always want to go back and advocate for those programs. So it was important for the city to have a representative and participate in this outreach in this team. We've been doing so for a number of years. And it's important for the projects that are of interest to us, but they're also important to show that support for our community partners to have the city there represented. And this team is really unique in advocating together and building those relationships with our representatives. It'll be really interesting after the November election. There's going to be quite a few changes back in Washington, D.C. and other areas. And so the next community outreach team trip, I believe, is going to be in March. And I think that will be an important trip as well to build relationships with new staffers and any changeover that we have there in Washington, D.C. And then the last update I had for you, just really briefly, earlier today, we had a Vision Action Plan partner meeting, which I think had a good turnout and went very well. And that was to discuss some of the draft results and feedback that we had heard from the community from the town hall that we had earlier this year, along with a number of surveys that had gone out. And we really were trying to foster some communication with our partners about their role and involvement and partnership in addressing the different topics that came out of that town hall. The council may remember a brief presentation our consultant gave a few months ago. And so hopefully with that information that we gained from this morning's meeting, we'll be working towards bringing a final report to the council, ideally in early November. But we'll continue to work that project forward and make sure that we integrate the feedback that we heard today into that final report. And with that, that's all I have.
Excellent. Counselor Long, would you give us an update, please?
Sure. So last week I had a couple of meetings. On Tuesday, the 20th, we had an urban renewal agency meeting. Were you planning to give a report on that?
Oh, I was absent for that meeting.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I
So I'm going to go ahead and give
Go
a
ahead.
report. I just don't want to step on anybody's toes. So we have our Brownsfield grant program that's available now. So the information is on the website. We have our new interim director, Josh Chandler, was with us and led us through that with our Alice Cannon, our consultant for right now as she transitions out. And so we are working on making sure that people in town know that there is grant money available for that. And also we have updated our application process for people that want to access urban renewal agency money for downtown. That's also available on the website. So we're trying to get the word out. So if the counselors and audience members would help us with that, that would be great. On Wednesday morning, I attended the Traffic Safety Committee meeting. We have some new, we talked about them a little bit at dinner. The stop signs, the four-way stops with the blinking lights have arrived and they're going to start being put up around town and a couple other locations. And we're still having a lot of graffiti. So if anyone sees graffiti, they need to report that to the city as soon as possible. Codes enforcement, Nikki Lesage, has been getting on that pretty quickly, which is helping keep that down. And we still have a good program with the county, as some of you might remember, where the juvenile department will go out and clean that up. So it's a good partnership. And finally, I've just had a number of constituent calls and emails, mostly around homelessness, winter sheltering, and also some, I passed it on to the city manager, but the child safety, boy, this is bad. Anyway, we're going to have a presentation in a couple weeks. So thanks. That's it.
Counselor Runyon.
Uh,
Wake up.
Just a couple. See here. Attended and was part of the Wasco County Pioneer Association meeting at the Discovery Center on the 15th. On the 16th, we held the POW MIA Day at Kelly Viewpoint, which was a National Day of Recognition. And on the 24th, this past Saturday, Columbia Gorge Law Enforcement and Columbia Gorge firefighters and EMS played flag football in the annual Pig Bowl game and raised a lot of money for a deserving young lady and her son, which I won't go into that here tonight. It'll be posted locally and whatnot, but well-attended packed house out at Sid White Field at Watauga School. That was it.
Okay, Counselor Richardson.
Thank you. Just a couple of brief items. One is that I attended the Vision Action Plan partner meeting this morning and thought that was substantive and useful, and looking forward to seeing that plan become a bit of a roadmap for us to get some direction to steer by for years to come. And the second thing worth reporting perhaps is that I had a constituent reach out and have some concern, which I'd share, about puncture vine around town, also known as goat heads. Perhaps the nastiest plant ever to have landed in our fair town. And I'm going to say, let's look for some action on that next year, whether it be volunteer or volunteer/city. Some measure of action would be of benefit. And so that's something I have on my mind. If anyone else is fired up about that, reach out and let's talk.
Counselor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing to report.
Right. Have anything? All right. I did attend the urban renewal meeting, and it was interesting, and I thought we had a wonderful interaction with management and that, and some good news out of that meeting. I attended the airport meeting. It was a busy week. And I also met with our manager, been in touch with our city attorney, and I was invited to attend the homeless task force on, I think it was Tuesday, and I did attend that, and it was productive, let's put it that way. So that's what my week looked like last week. All right, let's all counselor reports. Let's move on to a consent agenda. All right, items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on important items and issues. Any counselor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. We have A, approval of the September 12th, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes. B, to declare certain public works department equipment as surplus property and authorize disposal. And C, resolution of 22-032, a resolution assessing the real property located at 711 West 11th Street for the cost of abatement. All right. Do we have any discussion on consent agenda? Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Counselor Richardson seconded. Do we have any discussion on these topics? If no discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is passed, the consent agenda. We're going to move on to number 10, contract review board actions. The sole procurement lighted handrail replacement at the city dock. And this must be a staff report. All right.
Thank you, Counselor. Hope I don't jinx myself, but this is a relatively straightforward item for you this evening. There is a lighted handrail down at the city dock that has been damaged for quite some time and requires replacement. There are two handrails down there, and this one in particular has lighting within it. The current lighting system is no longer available, which requires us to replace the entire handrail. This is important because this is one of those first impression pieces, as the cruise ship passengers get off the dock, get off the cruise ship. This is the entryway that we have to our downtown and to our community for those passengers. And so we're seeking approval from you to purchase a new handrail for the dock gangway. It's a little over $50,000, which exceeds my spending authority. And so wanted to bring it to council for approval. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Many questions.
Where's the money come from? What's the fund?
Capital Projects Fund. Thank you. I was close. I was on the right track. And so this was a budgeted expense.
Okay. Any more discussion on this item? Then we need to entertain a motion.
Make a motion. I move to authorize the city manager to purchase a new handrail for the dock gangway from Platt Electric in the amount not to exceed $55,275.
Okay, excellent. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second with Councilwoman Runyon. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise a hand. Any negative, anyone that's opposing? Hearing none, this motion is carried. Action items. This is number 11, resolution number 22-031, a resolution adopting local limits for the discharge to the city water wastewater system. And our manager will give a report.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of council. The Federal Water Pollution Control Act, which is more commonly known as the Clean Water Act, requires the US EPA to adopt regulations to avoid the discharge of pollutants that could adversely impact public water systems. EPA developed regulations to implement the requirements of the Clean Water Act and requires the development of technically based local limits. In Oregon, the Department of Environmental Quality is responsible for adopting EPA regulations and implementing them at the state level. DEQ has, through its issuance of the permit to the city for the discharge from its wastewater treatment plant, passed on those requirements to the city to develop a pretreatment program and adopt technically based local limits. The city already has in place a pretreatment program, and we have local limits in place, but they've been in place since 2013, and we needed to update them based on updates in regulations and the required methodologies. The city advertised a RFP, a request for proposals, to select a consultant to do this work for us. We got no responses. DEQ then recommended a consultant to do this work. And that consultant was Steve L. Anderson, no relation, with whom the city contracted to perform the technical evaluation required that was required to use the DEQ local limits workbook Excel spreadsheet. This was an updated method that none of the other consultants had been using yet. So that's what restricted the competition. Through that process, the consultant utilized 3 different criteria to look at what the local limits for various pollutants would be. One would be a pollutant's potential to pass through the city's wastewater treatment systems and therefore pose a risk to aquatic life. That was the basis for the limits that are proposed for copper, mercury, and silver. The second criteria was the protection against inhibition of the city's wastewater treatment plant's internal processes. As you will recall, a lot of the processes at the wastewater treatment plant are biological in nature. It's possible for certain pollutants to harm the bacteria that are doing the work for us. And so it was this protection against inhibition that was used for developing the proposed limits for chromium, cyanide, and zinc. The third one is the protection of sludge or biosolids quality. The city disposes of the biosolids generated at the wastewater treatment plant through land application, working with local farmers. And there has to be care taken not to pollute the land that those biosolids are being applied on. So it's this protection of sludge quality criteria that was used in the development of the limits for arsenic, cadmium, lead, molybdenum, nickel, and selenium. The city's followed all the DEQ procedures for implementing the pretreatment program modifications. We have issued a public notice of the initially proposed local limits in January 2022. We did receive comments during that process, 2 sets of comments. One of those sets of comments was substantive and prompted the city to recalculate the originally proposed local limit for cyanide in accordance with the DEQ methodologies. And DEQ has issued its approval for these proposed local limits that are before you tonight. There's a table provided in the staff report that shows what the existing local limits are for each pollutant and also what the proposed new limit is. You'll see that a few went up, the concentrations increased, most went down. Some of them went down a lot. And some of them, such as chromium, are new standards that we didn't previously had. The final step in fulfilling the city's permit requirement to evaluate and revise our local limits is to adopt the new DEQ approved limits. And this can be done through the adoption of resolution number 22-031 attached to this report. In terms of budget, there are no budget implications associated with this adoption of this resolution. However, failure to adopt and revise our local limits by the November 30th of 2023 deadline could result in enforcement action, and that could involve fines. With that, it's staff's recommendation that the City Council move to adopt resolution number 22-031, a resolution adopting technically based local limits for discharges to the city's wastewater system.
Counselors, do you have any questions for Mr. Anderson?
You have no choice.
No, not really. Yes,
I do have a question.
go ahead. Counselor Long.
He's the environmental specialist.
then-
I noticed that 2 of the items that went up as far as approved daily maximum limit are both in the biosolid applications, so to the farmland, and they are arsenic and lead. Do you know the reasoning that that is now allowed to be higher?
And just applying the new methodologies and and using the current regulatory limits. I don't know the reason each one of these went up specifically, what part of that methodology added to that. I
Okay.
don't think the allowable, I guess there's a third element that plays into this, not only regulations on limits and the method that you have to use to determine, but the third one is a review of your customer, your current industrial users and their discharges. And if there is more capacity to be used and still stay within the limits, that gets allocated. And I think that could be one of the issues that led to these 2 coming up, is that those are 2 things our current dischargers are not discharging much of.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Richardson.
I had the same question about specifically about lead. It's a big increase. Is there any particular harm at this point in not allowing a local, the local standard to increase for lead?
We wouldn't have the technical basis for doing so. And we are required to adopt these rules based upon the technical methodology prescribed in EPA's handbook. In other words, it would be if I might put some words in about the political decision rather than a technical one. And it's my understanding, our requirement is to implement a technical based set of limits.
Would we be liable or vulnerable to legal action if we said that that's all well and good, but we're going to make
That
it?
might be a question for Mr. Kara with putting him on the spot with absolutely no chance to research this.
That's a great question. More than likely, it seems that the defining characteristic of the DEQ's concern here is that this methodology that Mr. Anderson just described be implemented for all limits. It doesn't appear, based off of my understanding, because I was a bit involved with this when Dave sent it over to me. I believe I wrote this resolution. It seems to me that he said it best. It seems to be a political decision more than a technical one, by DEQ at least. However, I don't know the answer to this question, Dave, but you mentioned November 2023 as the cutoff for the time in which council must adopt something. That's a bit away. And so if there is concern about lead or any other of these analytes increasing in value, it seems to me that we have quite some time, unless there's other considerations that I'm unaware of.
No, there are. We were originally had a much shorter compliance dateline. In fact, one that's now passed, and DEQ extended it without really setting a new compliance date. They just said we had to be done within the terms of our current permit, and our current permit expires next year. So that's where the deadline comes from. If I may, I think that I'll just share with you what I think a couple of different scenarios are. There was interest on the part of, various industries to have higher limits to make it easier on them. We told them we could not do that because it had to be a technically based approach. That was addressed through the comment period. And then the one was a substantive comment that did result in some changes when we reworked the approach, still within the methodology. I think if there was maybe some risk, if it didn't come from DEQ for not using a technical basis for setting one of the limits, it might be from the industry saying, why have you hit us with this when in fact you've shown you have plenty of capacity to accommodate this. I don't know if that would happen, but I think that might be where one of the challenges might come from.
So, I think that's exactly right for what it's worth. I think he's exactly right. And so that's a legal standard. Well, if the city acts in such a way as to sort of cherry pick one of these analytes and say, we're not going to be applying this expert's methodology to determining whether, the level that this is safe, there appears to be liability from the industry who would say, well, the city acting as a regulatory agency in this case, we're regulating these discharges or these limits. We've acted in here's the term, arbitrary and capricious manner. And that's the standard. And so it certainly is arbitrary and capricious to isolate lead as, something that we would want to emphasize our concerns about. But with all that said, considering that this is September 2022, we have, over a year before this sort of thing has to be done. I still haven't heard any compelling reason to do it today if there are outstanding questions connected with one or more of these analytes. And so I don't know whether the consultant is still available to maybe answer this question for Councilor Richardson and Councilor Long.
We can get access to the consultant. I think our first question would be back to DEQ. We've been working closely with a DEQ staff person through this. They reviewed the initial proposed limits. They reviewed and were aware of the comment and then blessed the revision to the one parameter. I can't remember now what it was, chromium or cadmium, that occurred as a result of those comments. So they've been hand in hand with us through this process. I think my first question would be to them, what would be their take on exempt, using a different standard for one parameter?
So yes, it seems like there could be liability is the answer to your question.
I don't think I have I should strike that. I don't have the background or the knowledge to say, hold up. It's just, it's as a percentage, it's a large increase. But I don't think I'm ready to hold it up. I suppose we could revise if we really dug into it and really felt that concern about it.
So what's the play? Yes, Councilor Runyon.
Mr. Anderson, bottom line is proving this, that we're in compliance and getting it done now does not stop the agency with doing their own revisions anyway. If they may come up with another formula and send that to us as well, and we're in the same position. So, I mean, that's happened before.
We're just a few months away from applying for a renewal of the permit. It's taken us most of the 5 years to get in compliance with the new terms of the last 5-year permit that was issued. And
My point being, there's no
Is that-
harm, no foul in approving it. The DEQ is in charge. If they decide to change the formula down the road, they'll have it right back here in front of us again.
Yeah, they've changed the formula methodology, or they control it. Let me put it that way. And they, based on federal guidance or requirements, set the end product limitation standards.
Exactly. Thank you.
So it sounds to me like we should move ahead and take a motion on this. Anyone?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 22-031, a resolution adopting technically based local limits for discharge to the city wastewater system.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right. Counselor Randall, second the motion. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this motion passes.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next one, which is animal control vehicle purchase. Chief Worthy.
Mayor, members of the
Yes.
council, I'm Tom Worthy. I'm here to present to you tonight the proposal to purchase the long-awaited and much-debated animal control vehicle for the animal control program for the city of the Dallas Police Department. During the budget development process for the 22-23 fiscal year, the police department, city manager, as well as the finance department collaborated and planned for the purchase of a new animal control truck to replace aged out and worn 15-year-old equipment that we're using today, and as well in need of replacement. Estimates and options were debated, explored, and developed, and approximate costs were put into the City of the Dallas Police Department budget in the dog control budget, and for $93,000. Pricing and bids have been obtained for the truck and the specialized animal control box. And you can see those numbers in your packet. The truck itself is $42,500 and change, and the animal control box is $38,823. Those are hard numbers. That total comes out to $81,364.43. But that's not all that the city needs to invest in to make the equipment fully operational. A few other items of much less cost, but still worthy of mentioning, are a light bar package for operations in the city around traffic and stopping, perhaps on 2nd Street. I mean, it might be anywhere that the duty calls. A radio, a graphics package to market as a city asset and let people know what that vehicle is doing out in public. Flashlight and charger, a couple other little things. Estimated total comes in just under 93,000 at 92,364.43. So this equipment, we do feel meets the need, will improve the program, and we are fully staffed at the animal control position right now, so it's an ongoing need. The funds are in the budget to be expended, but since it's a relatively large purchase, we're in front of council to brief you on this with a staff recommendation of authorize the city manager to execute a purchase of the listed truck and animal control box and a purchase not to exceed $82,000, or send it back for further work. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Chief Worthy? Any questions? Doesn't
Okay.
look like-
I have a question.
Yes,
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Is this a used vehicle or a new vehicle?
This is a new vehicle on government contract pricing.
Thank you.
yes, Counselor Runyon.
Maybe I'm not tracking here, but the total here is 93,000 or 92,364 for everything, light package, all of that, right? But the recommendation is showing 82. Is that a typo or
No, the total purchase that we actually need approval for
just that amount?
the 81,364. So we put in 82,000.
Okay. All right. I just noticed a difference in numbers. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is that the county truck that was donated to the city? or-
Well, the city originally bought it, so
Okay,
it's of where it came from is up for debate, but it is the same.
yeah, thought so.
It's very old. All right. Can we have a motion on the floor for this recommendation?
I'd make that motion. I move to authorize the city manager to execute a purchase of the listed truck and animal control box in an amount not to exceed $82,000.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Counselor Long seconds. Do we have any other discussion?
I will say we had a very healthy discussion about this at the budget process a few months ago.
I agree. All right, we have a motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is passed.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Like the new uniform, by the way.
Yeah. All right. Now we have a discussion item on pay equity report. Our Daniel Hunter, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, members of the council. Every 3 years, so last one was in 2019, we do a pay equity analysis looking at city positions that employees fill, the qualifications of those employees, where they are on compensation, and whether or not that employee happens to be in a protected class. And this year, as with 2019 analysis, shows that city policy is adequately addressing the pay equity issue. And doing this analysis provides the city with a positive defense should an employee file a claim. There are some positions that both myself and I've made the city manager aware of that we're going to want to look at closely, particularly with the labor negotiation just wrapping up with the police and going into next year with SEIU to make sure that we don't end up sideways with some position compensation packages for those employees, and already looking forward to those negotiations where we may need to end up for some of the positions. And those positions generally are going to be the lower paid or lower compensated positions of the SEIU labor union, which is going to be account clerk, department secretary, library technical assistant, court clerk. Those positions are really close as far as the predominant duties with the department secretary and the police department union, which they're two separate unions, obviously, but we want to make sure that we don't end up with one being compensated in excess of the others to a great degree that's not commensurate with the duties or responsibilities of the position.
Any questions of the counselors? Questions? None? I would like to draw a conclusion that the current city policy appears to be adequately address the compensation and qualifications for all city personnel. With that said, there's no motion on this. This is merely a report to bring us up to date. So, correct? Then we'll move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Going into executive session, and I am told I need to read this entire statement, and I will do so. The City Council of the Dalles of the Dalles will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 to consult with council concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representatives of all the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend this executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the meeting. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. Directly following the litigation executive session, the City Council of the Dalles will meet an executive session in accordance with ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media will not be allowed to attend the executive session concerning labor negotiations. No discussion may be made in the executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the meeting. We anticipate returning to open session within 30 to 45 minutes. Okay. I'm going to hang on.
Darcy, is your guest stayed?
And we were just talking about that, so.